The morning started like any other day at the Vortan Prime space station. Security Chief Kelrath walked through the busy market district, checking the security screens on his tablet. His 4 eyes moved independently, watching different parts of the crowd at once. Everything seemed normal. Traders from a dozen different planets were selling their goods. Visitors were looking at the strange items from across the galaxy. Then his communicator beeped. It was Officer Vorn from the south entrance. "Chief, we have a situation. 3 unregistered traders in Sector 7. They appear to be juveniles." Kelrath felt his antenna stiffen with concern. Juveniles operating without adult supervision was unusual. It could mean trafficking, illegal labor, or worse. He moved quickly through the market, his security team following behind him. When he arrived at Sector 7, he saw them immediately. 3 small beings with pale skin and odd hair colors. One had yellow hair pulled back, another had bright red hair. The third had brown hair that fell past her shoulders. They were standing behind a small table with various electronic devices spread out on it. These devices were clearly advanced technology. Some of them Kelrath recognized as communication equipment. Others looked like data storage units. All of them were unregistered, which meant they could be dangerous or illegal. The yellow-haired juvenile saw him approaching. Her eyes went wide. She said something to the other 2 in a language Kelrath did not understand. His translator picked it up after a moment. "Guys, I think we are in trouble." Kelrath stopped in front of their table. He tried to use his most official voice, the one that usually made violators confess immediately. "You are selling unregistered technology. This is a violation of galactic commerce law. Where are your parents? Where is your supervisor?" The red-haired juvenile spoke up. His voice was shaky. "We are not selling anything. We are just showing our school project. Professor Carter is right over there." He pointed across the market. Kelrath looked and saw another being of the same species. This one was taller, clearly an adult, talking to a Thraxian merchant. She had not noticed the security presence yet. "School project," Kelrath repeated slowly. His translator was working, but the concept seemed wrong. Why would juveniles bring school projects to a trading station? It made no sense. The adult noticed them now. She started walking toward them quickly, a concerned look on her face. As she got closer, Kelrath noticed she was carrying some kind of small bag. "Excuse me, officer. I am Professor Nicole Carter. These are my students. We are here on an educational visit. Is there a problem?" Kelrath gestured to the devices on the table. "These juveniles are displaying unregistered technology in a commercial zone. That is illegal." Professor Carter looked confused. "Unregistered? But we filed all the proper paperwork with the education office 3 weeks ago. We have permits for our visit." She reached for her bag, probably to get the permits. But Kelrath had dealt with smugglers before. They always had excuses. They always claimed to have paperwork. "Step away from the juveniles," Kelrath ordered. "Officer Vorn, secure the contraband." Officer Prex detained the juveniles for questioning. "Wait, what?" Professor Carter moved to stand between the officers and her students. "You cannot detain children without proper cause. They have done nothing wrong." "You are interfering with official security business," Kelrath said firmly. "Step aside or you will be charged as well." The yellow-haired juvenile, the one who had spoken first, grabbed the professor's arm. "Professor Carter, it is okay. We will go with them. Just call the embassy." "Sophie, no. I am not letting them take you." Professor Carter's voice was getting louder now. She was clearly distressed. But Kelrath had made his decision. The adult was being difficult. The juveniles had illegal technology. This was a clear case, and he would follow proper procedure. "Officer Vorn, take the adult to Interrogation Room 7. She can explain herself there." Officers Prex and Kell, escort the juveniles to Detention Cell 3. Keep them comfortable but secure. What followed was chaos. Professor Carter tried to resist, not violently, but by refusing to move. The 3 juveniles started making loud noises, clearly distressed. The yellow-haired one called Sophie was shouting something about needing to stay together. Eventually, the officers managed to separate them. Professor Carter was led away, still protesting. The 3 juveniles were taken in a different direction. Kelrath watched them go, feeling satisfied that he had handled a potentially dangerous situation. As he picked up one of the devices from the table, he noticed something. It had words written on it in Galactic Standard. Property of Earth Education Authority. Handle with care. Earth. That was the human homeworld. Kelrath had heard of humans. They were one of the newest species to join the galactic community. He did not know much about them, except that they were from a planet in some distant arm of the galaxy. He made a note to file a report with the Human Diplomatic Office. They would want to know that some of their juveniles had been detained for illegal activity. It was only proper procedure. What Kelrath did not know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his career. In detention cell 3, Sophie Bennett sat with her 2 classmates. Danny Walker was trying to stay brave, but his hands were shaking. Megan Ross was very quiet, which meant she was scared. Sophie was 15 years old. She was the oldest and felt responsible for the younger 2. This field trip was supposed to be fun and educational. They were supposed to learn about alien cultures and trading practices. Instead, they were locked in a cell. The aliens had taken their communicators. They could not call for help. Professor Carter had been taken somewhere else. Sophie did not know what to do. "Do you think they will hurt us?" Danny asked quietly. "No," Sophie said, trying to sound confident. "They seem confused, not mean. They think we did something wrong. Once they check the permits, they will let us go." But hours passed and no one came. The detention cell was not uncomfortable. There were benches to sit on. The temperature was okay, but they were alone, and they were scared. What Sophie did not know was that Professor Carter was in a much worse situation. In interrogation room 7, Nicole Carter was trying to stay calm. She needed her insulin, she had diabetes, and her blood sugar was dropping. She had tried to explain this to the alien interrogators, but they thought she was making excuses. Her medical kit was in her bag. The aliens had taken her bag as evidence. She asked for it back, explained that she needed medication, but they refused. They said providing comfort items during interrogation was against their rules. Nicole was a teacher. She had taught interstellar studies for 10 years. She had taken students on field trips to a dozen different planets. She knew the protocols, she knew the laws, and she knew that what was happening right now was very, very wrong. She also knew that when the embassy found out what had happened, there would be consequences. Big consequences. Because humans had very specific rules about children, and the aliens had just broken every single one of them. High above the planet, a human diplomatic vessel received an automated distress signal. 3 human minors and 1 human adult had been detained on Vortan Prime. The signal had been triggered when their communicators were confiscated. Ambassador Gregory Kane read the report, and his blood ran cold. Children. They had detained children. He immediately ordered the ship to change course. They would be at Vortan Prime in 2 hours. He called his security team, his legal advisor, and his medical staff. Everyone needed to be ready, because if those children were harmed, if Professor Carter was hurt, there would be hell to pay, and these sweet summer aliens had no idea what they had just started. The human diplomatic vessel landed at Vortan Prime exactly 2 hours after receiving the distress signal. Ambassador Gregory Kane walked down the ramp with purpose. Behind him came Captain Lisa Morgan, Commander Jack Turner, and Attorney Helen Price. They moved like soldiers, fast and focused. Kelrath met them at the security entrance. He had cleaned his uniform and prepared a formal greeting. He expected a routine diplomatic discussion about the detained juveniles. What he got instead made his antenna tremble with fear. Ambassador Kane did not offer any greeting. His face was hard as stone. "Where are the children?" "The juveniles are in detention cell 3, Kelrath replied using his most official voice. "They are being held according to standard protocol while we investigate the illegal technology." "Children," the ambassador said again, his voice cold. "Not juveniles, children, human children. Aged 15, 14, and 13. Kelrath felt confused. What was the difference? Young beings were young beings regardless of what you called them. Captain Morgan stepped forward. She was shorter than the ambassador, but somehow more frightening. Where is their teacher? Where is Professor Nicole Carter? The adult is in interrogation room 7. She was interfering with official business, so we are questioning her separately. Commander Turner, the big man, made a sound low in his throat. It reminded Kelrath of the war beasts from his homeworld. How long has she been in interrogation? Kelrath checked his tablet. 4 hours and 17 minutes. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. Captain Morgan's hand moved to her weapon. Commander Turner's jaw clenched. Even Attorney Price, who had seemed calm until now, looked angry. Take me to the children first, Ambassador Kane ordered. Then we will discuss Professor Carter. Kelrath led them through the detention center. Other security officers stopped to stare at the humans. There was something in the way they moved that made everyone nervous. Like predators on a hunt. When they reached detention cell 3, Kelrath saw the 3 children, sitting on the benches. They looked tired and scared. The moment the energy barrier dropped, they stood up quickly. Ambassador Kane, Sophie said. Her voice was shaky with relief. Sophie, Danny, Megan. Are you hurt? Did anyone harm you? The ambassador's voice changed completely when he spoke to them. It was gentle, concerned, nothing like the cold tone he had used with Kelrath. No, sir. They did not hurt us. Just scared us. Sophie paused. But they took Professor Carter somewhere else. She needs her medicine. She has diabetes medicine, Captain Morgan repeated, turning to look at Kelrath. What medicine? Kelrath felt his confidence crumbling. The adult mentioned something called insulin. We thought she was making excuses to avoid interrogation. Commander Turner was already moving. Take me to her. Now. The group moved through the detention center like a storm. Kelrath hurried ahead, suddenly very aware that something had gone terribly wrong. The way the humans were acting, the urgency in their voices, the anger barely controlled beneath the surface. They reached interrogation room 7. Kelrath opened the door, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Professor Carter was slumped in the interrogation chair. Her skin was pale and covered in sweat. Her hands were shaking. The 2 interrogators, Officers Prex and Vela, stood on the other side of the table looking frustrated. Commander Turner crossed the room in 3 long steps. He knelt beside Professor Carter, checking her pulse at her neck and wrist. Nicole, can you hear me? Professor Carter's eyes opened slowly. Jack. Thank God. The kids? Safe. All 3 are safe. Where is your medical kit? They took it. Evidence bag. Somewhere. Captain Morgan was already on her communicator. Medical emergency. I need a kit from the ship. Diabetes patient in hypoglycemic crisis. Move fast. Kelrath finally understood. Insulin was not a comfort item. It was medicine. Life-saving medicine. And they had taken it away from her for 4 hours. Officer Prex tried to explain. She kept asking for something from her bag. We thought it was a trick. Detainees often try to get their belongings back by claiming medical needs. Ambassador Kane turned to face them. His eyes were like ice. She told you she had a medical condition. She told you she needed medication. And you ignored her. We followed protocol, Officer Vela said weakly. Your protocol just nearly killed a human civilian, the ambassador said quietly. The quiet was somehow worse than shouting. A human medic burst through the door. She carried a medical kit and immediately went to Professor Carter. Commander Turner moved aside to let her work. She gave Professor Carter an injection and checked her vital signs. She will be okay, the medic reported, but she needs rest and monitoring. Her blood sugar was dangerously low. Attorney Price stepped forward. She pulled out a data tablet and began recording. I am formally notifying you that the Earth government will be filing charges. You have violated the Galactic Convention on Sentient Rights. Article 3, Denial of Medical Care. Article 7, Detention of minors without legal representation. Article 12, Separation of dependent children from their guardian. Kelrath felt his world collapsing. Charges, official charges. His career was over. The station would be sanctioned. Vortan Prime's relationship with humanity was destroyed, but Ambassador Kane held up his hand. Before we proceed with formal charges, I want everyone involved in this incident to understand what you have done, not in legal terms. In human terms, the ambassador looked at each of them in turn. You arrested human children. You separated them from their protector. You denied medical care to their teacher. Do you have any idea what that means to humans? Kelrath found his voice. We were following standard security protocols. We had no knowledge of human customs regarding juveniles. Children, the ambassador corrected again. And that is the problem. You did not know. But ignorance does not excuse what happened here. Captain Morgan spoke up. If the ambassador had not been nearby, if we had arrived too late, if Professor Carter had died or if those children had been harmed, do you know what would have happened? Kelrath shook his head slowly. War, Commander Turner said simply. Maybe not official war, but there would have been violence. Because humans do not forgive threats to children. Any children? Not just our own. Kelrath felt his antenna droop. He had thought he was doing his job correctly. He had followed every rule in the security manual. But those rules had not prepared him for humans. Ambassador Kane's voice became slightly softer, though still firm. I am not saying this to threaten you. I am saying this so you understand. Humans are different from most species in the galaxy. We have strong protective instincts, especially toward young beings. This is built into our biology, our evolution, our very nature. The ambassador gestured to Professor Carter, who was looking more alert now. She threw herself into interrogation, trying to protect her students. Commander Turner and Captain Morgan were ready to fight their way through this entire facility. Attorney Price is preparing legal action that could shut down this station. All of this because you arrested 3 children. Officer Preck spoke quietly. We did not understand. We thought juveniles were just small adults. They are not, Captain Morgan said. Not to humans. Children are precious, sacred, protected at all costs. That is not culture. That is instinct. Kelrath looked at the 3 humans before him. The ambassador with his cold anger. The captain with her hand still near her weapon. The commander who looked like he could tear through walls. All of this because of 3 children. He finally understood. Humans were not like other species. They were dangerous in ways he had never imagined. And he had accidentally triggered the most dangerous thing about them, their protective instinct. The conference room on the human embassy vessel was very different from the cold detention center. It had real wooden furniture, green plants in the corners, and warm lighting that felt like natural sunlight. Kelrath sat at the large table. Next to him were Officers Prex and Vela, and Station Administrator Quern, who was his boss. Across from them sat Ambassador Kane, Attorney Price, and a new person. She was introduced as Dr. Patricia Lee, a scientist who studied how different species think and behave. The 3 children were safely on the ship now, being checked by doctors. Professor Carter was resting in the medical bay, but everyone in this room knew that the real problem had not been solved yet. Dr. Lee stood up and activated a holographic display. The image showed a blue and green planet floating in space. This is Earth, our homeworld. Please look at where it is in our solar system. It is the 3rd planet from a yellow sun. The weather is not too hot and not too cold, but the important thing is what lived there with us. The hologram changed to show various animals. Big cats with sharp teeth, huge bears with powerful claws, wolves that hunted in groups. All of them looked dangerous. These are what we call apex predators, Dr. Lee explained. They are the most dangerous hunters on Earth. Humans did not evolve as prey animals. We evolved living alongside these predators. We competed with them for food. We learned from them. We became like them. Kelrath watched, confused. I do not understand why this matters. Ambassador Kane leaned forward. It matters because humans are predators. Look at our eyes. They face forward, which helps us track moving prey. Our bodies can run for hours without stopping, which helps us chase animals until they collapse from exhaustion. We hunt in groups and coordinate our attacks, and most important of all, we protect our young with incredible ferocity. Dr. Lee showed new images on the hologram. These were news recordings and security videos. In every one, adult humans were defending children. A mother lifting a heavy vehicle off her trapped child. A father fighting multiple attackers to save his daughter. A teacher jumping in front of bullets to protect her students. When humans see a threat to children, Dr. Lee said, our bodies change. A chemical called adrenaline floods our system. We become stronger. We feel less pain. Our ability to think rationally can shut down completely. All that matters is protecting the child. Station Administrator. Quern shifted nervously. Are you saying that humans become violent? Ambassador Kane's face was grim. If Professor Carter had died in that interrogation room, if those children had been seriously hurt, yes, violence would have been impossible to prevent, not because we wanted it, but because millions of years of evolution would have taken over. Attorney Price spoke up. Let me be very clear about something. Commander Turner is a decorated military officer. He has fought in 3 wars. Captain Morgan leads an elite combat unit. They are trained to control their emotions. But even they were barely holding back. If Ambassador Kane had not ordered them to stand down, your detention center would be a battlefield right now. But we did not mean any harm, Officer Vela said quietly. We were just following our rules. Dr. Lee nodded with understanding. I know. That is why we are having this conversation instead of a trial. Intent matters, but not knowing about human behavior is not an excuse. You need to understand that humans view children as sacred, not just human children, all children from all species. The hologram changed again. Now it showed human aid workers protecting alien children during wars, human soldiers guarding nurseries on dangerous planets, human teachers volunteering at schools in poor areas across the galaxy. We extend our protective instinct to all young beings, Ambassador Kane explained. It is built into our culture, our laws, and our identity as a species. When you arrested those 3 children, you did not just break a rule. You triggered a biological response that could have ended in bloodshed. Kelrath felt his antenna trembling. We have children too. We care for our young. But I have never felt the kind of anger I saw in your people today. Dr. Lee pulled up a chart comparing different species. Most species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals or in stable environments. Your young mature quickly. If one is lost, you can have more. For humans, it is different. Our children take many years to mature. They require constant care and protection. Losing a child is devastating. So evolution gave us powerful instincts to prevent that loss. Station Administrator Quern looked genuinely worried. What do we do now? How do we make sure this never happens again? Ambassador Kane and Attorney Price exchanged a look. The attorney pulled out a data tablet. We have prepared a detailed proposal. First, formal protocols for handling any situation involving human minors. Second, mandatory training programs for all security forces. Third, human liaison officers stationed at major facilities. And fourth, immediate notification requirements when any human under 18 years old is detained. 18 years, Kelrath repeated. That seems very old for a juvenile. For humans, anyone under 18 is legally a child, Attorney Price explained. They have special protections under our law, and now they will have special protections under these new protocols as well. Kelrath bowed his head, all 4 eyes closing. This was a gesture of submission and respect in his culture. We will implement everything. Immediately. All of it. He paused, struggling to find the right words. And I formally apologize. To Sophie, Danny, and Megan. To Professor Carter. To all of humanity. What we did was wrong, even if we did not understand why. Ambassador Kane stood and reached across the table with his hand extended. Kelrath had studied enough about humans to know this was a gesture of peace and reconciliation. He carefully reached out and grasped the ambassador's hand. Apology accepted, the ambassador said. His voice was warmer now. But understand something, Security Chief. This can never happen again. Because next time, I might not be close enough to prevent the inevitable response, and then everyone loses. Dr. Lee added one more thing. I want you to understand that this protective instinct is not a weakness. It makes humans valuable allies. If you ever have children in danger, if you ever need someone to defend the helpless, humans will be there. We will protect your children as fiercely as we protect our own. Officer Preck spoke up. So the same instinct that makes you dangerous also makes you trustworthy? Exactly, Ambassador Kane said, with a slight smile. We are predators, yes. But we are also protectors. That is what makes humans both dangerous and dependable. The meeting continued for another hour. Attorney Price went through every detail of the new protocols. Dr. Lee explained more about human psychology and behavior. Ambassador Kane answered questions about human culture and customs. By the end, Kelrath had filled his data tablet with notes. He would need to memorize all of this. He would need to teach it to every security officer on Vortan Prime. The protocols, the warnings, the special considerations for human children. But more than the protocols, he had learned something deeper. Humans were not like other species. They could not be treated like other species. They were predators who had built civilization on top of their hunting instincts. And those instincts never truly went away. As the meeting ended and everyone stood to leave, Station Administrator Quern pulled Kelrath aside. "You made a terrible mistake, but you also have a chance to fix it. Learn from this. Teach others. Make sure no one else in the galaxy makes the same error." Kelrath nodded. His career was not over after all. It was changing direction. He would become an expert on humans. He would train others. He would make sure that the galaxy understood. Before leaving the ship, Kelrath asked if he could see the children one more time. Ambassador Kane agreed but came with him. Sophie, Danny, and Megan were in a common room, eating human food and watching something on a screen. They looked much happier now. When they saw Kelrath, they became quiet and watchful. Kelrath approached slowly. "I wanted to apologize to you directly. I made a mistake. I did not understand human customs regarding children. I scared you, and I am sorry." Sophie looked at the ambassador, who nodded. Then she looked back at Kelrath. "We accept your apology. We were really scared. But Professor Carter told us that sometimes people make mistakes because they do not know better, not because they are mean. Your professor is wise," Kelrath said, "and brave. She tried to protect you even when it put her in danger. That is what teachers do," Danny said simply. "They protect their students." Kelrath realized something in that moment. These children understood something he had not. That protection was a two-way relationship. Adults protected children, but children also trusted adults. And when he had broken that trust, he had committed a serious wrong. As he left the ship and returned to the station, Kelrath felt different. He had learned more in one day than in years of security training. And the lesson was simple, but profound. Never mess with human children. Because humans, those sweet summer aliens had learned, were not to be underestimated when their young were threatened. 3 weeks had passed since what everyone now called the Vortan incident. News of what happened had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Every species was talking about it. Some were angry at human aggression. Others were confused about why humans cared so much about children who were not even related to them. But everyone was paying attention. Kelrath stood in front of a huge auditorium on the Galactic Council station. He had been invited to speak about the incident, to share what he had learned. The irony was not lost on him. He had gone from being a respected security chief to being a cautionary tale. But if his mistakes could help others avoid the same problems, it was worth it. The auditorium was packed. Representatives from 40 different species filled the seats. Some he recognized, many he did not. But all of them were here for the same reason: to learn how to avoid making his mistakes. The moderator, a tall Thraxian diplomat, called for attention. Security Chief Kelrath will now present his findings. Please hold your questions until the end. Kelrath walked to the podium. His 4 eyes scanned the audience. Some looked curious. Others looked skeptical. A few looked worried. "I will begin with the obvious," he started. "I made terrible errors in judgment. I endangered children. I denied medical care to a sick person. I almost caused an interstellar incident that could have led to war. But more importantly, I failed to understand the species I was dealing with." He activated his presentation. The first slide showed basic facts about human biology. Humans are classified as predators. This is not an opinion or an insult. It is scientific fact. They have eyes that face forward like hunters. They have teeth designed for eating meat. They have social structures similar to pack predators from their homeworld. A representative from the Kelvar species raised a limb. The Kelvar were prey evolved like many species in the galaxy. But humans are civilized. They follow laws. They trade peacefully. Why does their predator biology matter? Kelrath nodded. That is an excellent question. Yes, humans are civilized. They have built impressive societies. They follow rules and respect treaties. But their predator instincts do not disappear. They are suppressed, controlled, but never eliminated. And certain situations can bring those instincts to the surface very quickly. He changed the slide to show pictures of Sophie, Danny, and Megan. These are human children. By human standards, they are not young adults or adolescents. They are children, and humans have an absolute non-negotiable protective response when children are threatened. The next slide showed the new protocols that had been developed. Notice the key elements. Immediate notification of human authorities. Legal representation must be present. Medical screening is mandatory. Contact with parents or guardians within 1 hour. These are not suggestions. They are requirements. A Thraxian delegate spoke up. These protocols seem excessive. We do not have such strict rules for our own young. They are not excessive, Kelrath replied firmly. They are survival protocols. Because the alternative is facing adult humans in full protective mode. And I assure you, you do not want that. He showed video footage from the detention center. Commander Turner crossing the room to reach Professor Carter. Captain Morgan's hand moving toward her weapon. The cold, controlled anger in Ambassador Kane's face. These humans showed incredible restraint. Professional discipline. But if circumstances had been slightly different, if Professor Carter had died, if the children had been harmed, that restraint would have shattered. And I would not be standing here today. The auditorium was completely silent now. Everyone was paying attention. Some of you may think I am exaggerating, Kelrath continued. You may believe that no civilized species would resort to violence over children. But you would be wrong. Because humans did not evolve in safe, stable environments. They evolved in a world where every child represented years of investment. Where losing a child could mean the end of a family line. He pulled up historical data about human conflicts. Humans have fought wars to rescue stolen children. They have crossed oceans and continents to find lost young. They have laws that give special protection to children, even at the expense of adults. This is not just culture, it is biological imperative. Another question came from the audience. A Vorton administrator, one of Kelrath's former colleagues. So what do we do? How do we interact with human children safely? Kelrath allowed himself a small smile. Simple. You treat them with the same care and respect you would show to the offspring of your most important leaders. You ensure their safety. You protect their welfare. And most importantly, you never separate them from their guardians without absolute necessity and immediate notification. He paused, letting that information sink in. But there is another lesson here. One that goes beyond rules and procedures. Humans extend their protective instinct to all children, not just their own species. If you have young in danger, if you need help protecting the vulnerable, humans will respond. They will defend. They will sacrifice. The slide changed to show human aid workers, teachers, and medical personnel working across dozens of different planets. This is not weakness. This is strength. The same instinct that makes humans dangerous when threatened makes them invaluable as allies. They will protect your children as fiercely as they protect their own. A long discussion followed. Representatives asked questions about specific scenarios. What if a human child breaks a law? What if they are in danger but human authorities cannot be reached immediately? What if there is a genuine emergency? Kelrath answered each question carefully. He had spent 3 weeks studying human law and psychology. He knew the protocols inside and out now. If a human child breaks a law, you still notify human authorities immediately. The child can be detained, but with special care. They must have food, water, and comfort. They must be treated gently, and their guardians must be contacted within 1 hour. If human authorities cannot be reached, you treat the situation as a highest priority emergency. You protect the child as if they were your own species' most important young. You document everything you do, and you keep trying to make contact. If there is a genuine emergency like a natural disaster or attack, the protocols are flexible. The key is always the same. Protect the children first. Notify humans as soon as possible. Document your actions. Show that you acted in good faith to keep them safe. As the presentation was ending, a question came from the back of the auditorium. Do humans really care about alien children as much as their own? Kelrath looked toward the voice. I have seen the evidence with my own eyes. Human aid workers risk their lives for alien children. Human teachers volunteer at schools on poor planets. Human soldiers guard nurseries in war zones. Yes, they really care. It is built into who they are. The presentation ended with applause. It was not enthusiastic, but it was sincere. As Kelrath left the stage, he saw Ambassador Kane standing at the back of the auditorium. The human nodded once, a gesture of approval. Later, in a quiet corridor, the ambassador approached him. "You did well in there. That was not easy, admitting your mistakes in front of the entire galaxy." "It was necessary," Kelrath replied. "If my mistakes can prevent others from making the same errors, then something good came from a bad situation." Ambassador Kane smiled. "You know you have become something of an expert on humans now. Have you considered making this your specialty?" Kelrath's antenna perked up with interest. "What do you mean?" "The Galactic Council needs trainers. People who can teach others about human customs and behaviors. People who understand both the rules and the reasons behind them. You have learned those lessons the hard way. Now you can teach them to others the easy way." Kelrath considered this. A new career. A new purpose. Instead of being remembered as the security chief who almost started a war, he could be known as the expert who helped prevent future conflicts. "I accept," he said. "When do I start?" Ambassador Kane pulled out a data tablet. "How about next week? We have requests for training from 12 different stations. It seems everyone wants to avoid a Vortan incident of their own." Kelrath took the tablet and reviewed the list. 12 stations, hundreds of security officers, thousands of people who would learn from his mistakes. As he walked back to his quarters, Kelrath felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. His terrible mistake had almost destroyed everything, but now it was becoming the foundation for something better. A galaxy where humans and aliens could coexist safely, where children of all species would be protected. And all because 3 human children had gone on a school field trip and met a security chief who did not understand what he was dealing with. The lesson had been learned. Now it was time to teach it to the rest of the galaxy. 6 months after the Vortan incident, the Galactic Council held a special session. The chamber was filled with representatives from every member species. The topic of discussion was historic. For the first time ever, the Council was going to adopt specific guidelines for interactions with a single species young. Sophie Bennett, Danny Walker, and Megan Ross watched from Earth through a holographic link. They were back home now, finishing their school year. But Ambassador Kane had invited them to witness this important moment. They sat in their classroom with Professor Carter and their other classmates. Professor Carter looked much healthier now. She wore a special medical bracelet that displayed her diabetic status in 17 different galactic languages. It was a small change, but an important one. No one would ever ignore her medical needs again. The vote began. One by one, each species representative cast their vote. The Human Juvenile Protection Protocols. A formal set of rules for how to handle human children throughout the galaxy. Even the species that had initially protested voted yes. They had all heard about the Vortan incident. They had all learned the lesson. The protocols were not just about protecting human children. They were about preventing war. The final tally appeared on the screen. Unanimous approval. Every single species had voted in favor. The classroom on Earth erupted in cheers. Sophie and her classmates clapped and shouted with excitement. Professor Carter wiped tears from her eyes. Something good had come from their frightening experience. On the council station, Ambassador Kane approached the central podium to speak. "This is a historic day, but I want to be clear about something. This is not about human exceptionalism. This is about mutual understanding. We humans are young in this galactic community. We have much to learn from all of you, but we also have things to teach." He paused, looking around the chamber. "One of those lessons is this. All young deserve protection. All children deserve safety. Not because of their species, but because they represent the future. Our future. All of our futures together," the ambassador continued. "We humans are predators. We evolved to hunt, to compete, to survive in a dangerous world. But we also evolved to protect, to nurture, to defend those who cannot defend themselves. This duality is what makes us human. And it is what we offer to this community." Applause filled the chamber. It was genuine and warm. The galaxy was accepting humans not despite their predator nature, but because they understood it now. Kelrath watched from his seat in the gallery. He was wearing a new uniform now. Not security, but diplomatic liaison. His new job was training others about human behavior and customs. He had already visited 8 different stations in the past few months. 8 more were scheduled for next month. His personal communicator vibrated. A message. He opened it and saw it was from Sophie. Mr. Kelrath, thank you for everything you have done since that day. We know you were just doing your job, and we are grateful that something good came from something scary. You turned a mistake into a learning experience for everyone. That takes courage. Sophie, Danny, and Megan. Kelrath felt warmth spread through his chest. He carefully composed a response. Dear Sophie, Danny, and Megan, it is I who should thank you. You taught me more about humans in one day than years of study could have accomplished. You showed me that courage is not just adults protecting children. It is also children being brave when adults fail them. You have my deepest respect. Kelrath. On Earth, Sophie read the message aloud to her class. Everyone smiled. Their scary experience had helped change the entire galaxy. That was something to be proud of, so, Danny asked with a grin. Ready for another field trip? Professor Carter laughed. Only if the destination has properly filed the new protocols. The whole class erupted in laughter. The Vorton incident had become part of their shared history, a story they would tell for the rest of their lives. Not as a tale of conflict, but as a lesson in understanding and growth. Across the galaxy, the new protocols were being implemented. A Thraxian security officer on a distant trading post reviewed them before starting her shift. She read the special section about human children carefully, the requirements for immediate notification, the warnings about medical conditions, the absolute rule against separating children from their guardians. She had watched Kelrath's presentation. She had read his detailed reports. She understood the message clearly. Humans were not the monsters some species had feared, but they were also not to be taken lightly, especially where their young were concerned. They were partners in the galactic community, allies to be valued, friends to be trusted, and their children, like all children, deserved the protection that humans instinctively provided. On the human embassy vessel, Commander Turner and Captain Morgan shared a drink in the officers' lounge. They had received medals for their restraint during the Vorton incident. Both felt strange accepting awards for not starting a fight. Do you think it will last? Morgan asked. The protocols, I mean. Will they actually follow them? Turner considered the question carefully. It will last because they understand now, not just in their heads but in their hearts. They saw how close we came to violence. They saw how easily it could have gone wrong. They do not want to experience that again. Good, Morgan replied, because I never want to be in that position again. Having to choose between my duty and my instincts. That was the hardest thing I have ever done. None of us want that, Turner agreed. But if it happens again, we will handle it the same way. Because that is what humans do. We protect our young, all of them. No matter what, Ambassador Kane entered the lounge. He looked tired but satisfied. The protocols passed unanimously. Every station, every outpost, every diplomatic mission now has the guidelines. And Kelrath has been officially appointed as the chief trainer for the entire program. He sat down with his officers and accepted a glass from Turner. So we managed to turn a near disaster into a diplomatic victory. Not bad for a species that has only been in the galactic community for 2 generations. Morgan raised her glass. To the kids. May they never fully understand how close we came to war. To the kids, Turner and Kane echoed together, and across the galaxy, in classrooms and security stations, in diplomatic offices and family homes, the message continued to spread. Humans were partners now, full members of the galactic community, but they brought with them something the galaxy had not seen before in such powerful form. An absolute, unwavering commitment to protecting children, not just human children. All children, every species, every world, because that was what humanity offered the galaxy, not just technology or trade or military strength. They offered a guarantee, a promise, that no child of any species would ever face danger alone, not while humans were there to help. The galaxy had learned this lesson. Those sweet summer aliens, as some humans jokingly called them, had discovered what happens when you threaten human children. You face the full protective fury of an entire species. A species that had evolved as predators but had channeled that aggression into protection rather than destruction. And now everyone knew. Everyone understood. The protocols were in place. The training was ongoing. The lesson was being taught across thousands of worlds. You arrested human kids? Oh, sweet summer alien. You will not make that mistake twice because now you know what humans are capable of when their protective instincts are triggered. And more importantly, you know how to avoid triggering them in the first place. The lesson was complete. The protocols were established. And the galaxy was a little bit safer for all children, because 3 human kids went on a field trip and everything went wrong in exactly the right way. 1 year after the Vortan incident, the galaxy looked very different. The human juvenile protection protocols had been implemented on every major station, outpost, and colony. Kelrath had trained over 5,000 security officers from 40 different species. Not a single incident involving human children had occurred since the protocols went into effect. But more than just preventing problems, something unexpected was happening. Humans were becoming known as the protectors of all children. When there was a crisis involving young beings of any species, humans were often the first to volunteer help. On a mining colony in the Outer Rim, a cave-in had trapped 12 young Kelvar workers. The local rescue teams were struggling. Within hours, a human rescue ship arrived. Commander Turner led the operation. His team worked for 36 hours straight, refusing to rest until every single child was brought to safety. The Kelvar parents asked why humans would risk so much for alien children. Commander Turner's answer was simple. Because they are children, that is all the reason we need. On Earth, Sophie Bennett was now 16 years old. She had become something of a celebrity in the interstellar studies community. Schools across the galaxy invited her to speak about her experience. She always gave the same message. Understanding between species requires communication, respect, and sometimes learning from difficult experiences. Danny Walker had decided to become a diplomat when he grew up. The Vortan incident had shown him how important it was for different species to understand each other. He spent his free time studying alien cultures and languages. Megan Ross was quieter about her experience, but it had affected her deeply. She wanted to become a teacher like Professor Carter, someone who could help young people learn about the wider galaxy while keeping them safe. Professor Carter continued teaching at the Academy for Interstellar Studies. She had written a textbook about cross-species cultural understanding. The chapter about protective instincts in different species was required reading at diplomatic schools across the galaxy. She wore her medical bracelet proudly now. It had become a symbol of how one mistake had led to important changes. On Vortan Prime, the detention center had been completely redesigned. Security Chief Kelrath, though he no longer worked there, had helped create the new procedures. There were comfortable waiting areas for families. Medical screening was mandatory for all detainees. Special protocols existed not just for humans but for the young of every species. The changes inspired by the Vortan incident had spread beyond just protecting children. The entire approach to interspecies law enforcement had become more careful and considerate. Every species had unique needs and customs. Understanding those differences was now considered essential training. Kelrath stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. He was preparing for another training session. This one would be for new diplomatic personnel, teaching them not just about humans but about the importance of cultural understanding in general. Ambassador Kane joined him at the window. They had become friends over the past year. An unusual friendship between a human and a Vortan, but one built on mutual respect and shared purpose. I heard about the rescue on the mining colony, Kelrath said. Commander Turner and his team saved all 12 children. The Kelvar government has offered humanity a permanent alliance. Ambassador Kane nodded. That is what humans do. We cannot help ourselves. When we see children in danger, we respond. It does not matter if they are human or alien. They are young, they are vulnerable, and they need help. It is remarkable, Kelrath said quietly. Most species protect their own young. Some extend that protection to allies. But humans protect all young. Even species you barely know. The ambassador smiled. It is both our greatest strength and our greatest vulnerability. That protective instinct makes us predictable in some ways, but it also makes us trustworthy. You know that if you have children in danger, humans will come. We might not have the fastest ships or the most advanced weapons, but we will come and we will not leave until every child is safe. A young Thraxian approached them nervously. She was a new security trainee about to attend Kelrath's session. Excuse me, Mr. Kelrath. I wanted to ask something before the training starts. Is it true that humans almost went to war over 3 children? Kelrath looked at Ambassador Kane, who nodded permission to answer. It is true, not official war, but violence was very close. Because I made mistakes. I did not understand human protective instincts. I separated children from their guardian. I denied medical care to their teacher. And I nearly paid a terrible price for those errors. The Thraxian looked worried. How do we avoid making the same mistakes? That is exactly what you will learn in training, Kelrath replied kindly. The protocols are not complicated. They are based on simple principles. Respect the young of all species. Understand that different cultures have different needs. Communicate clearly. And when in doubt, ask for help rather than making assumptions. Ambassador Kane added his own perspective. And remember this, the protocols exist not just to protect you from angry humans. They exist to create a better galaxy for everyone, a place where all children are safe, regardless of their species. That is the real lesson of the Vortan incident. The training session that day was Kelrath's best yet. He spoke passionately about his mistakes and the lessons learned. He showed videos of human protective behavior. He explained the biology and psychology behind human instincts. And he made sure everyone understood that these protocols were not punishments or restrictions. They were tools for building trust. At the end of the session, a Kelvar officer raised her hand. My cousin's children were the ones saved in the mining colony rescue. She told me the human rescuers worked until they were exhausted. They refused to leave even when they were clearly in danger themselves. Why would they do that for children they did not even know? Kelrath looked to Ambassador Kane, who stood to answer. Because to humans, all children are worth saving. We evolved that way. In our ancient past, humans lived in small groups. Every child in the group was important to everyone. It was not just parents who protected children. It was aunts, uncles, grandparents, family friends, even strangers. That instinct never went away. We just expanded it to include the entire galaxy. The room was quiet for a moment. Then the Kelvar officer spoke again. On behalf of my family and my species, thank you. Those human rescuers gave us back our future. We will never forget what they did. As the session ended and the trainees filed out, Kelrath felt a deep sense of satisfaction. 1 year ago, he had been a disgraced security chief who had nearly caused an interstellar war. Now he was helping to build understanding across the galaxy. His mistake had led to protocols that protected all children, not just humans. That was something worth being proud of. That evening, Kelrath received a video call. It was Sophie, Danny, and Megan. They were in their classroom working on a project. Mr. Kelrath, Sophie said with a smile, we are doing a presentation about the impact of the Vortan incident on galactic policy. We wanted to interview you if you have time. Kelrath felt his antenna warm with happiness. Of course, I would be honored. The interview lasted an hour. The children asked thoughtful questions about the changes that had occurred, the challenges of implementing the protocols, and what the future might hold. They had grown so much in the past year, not just physically, but in their understanding of the complex galaxy they were part of. As the call was ending, Megan, who had been quiet for most of the interview, asked one final question. Mr. Kelrath, do you think other species will ever develop the same protective instincts that humans have? Kelrath thought carefully before answering. I think all species protect their young in their own ways. But humans are special in how far you extend that protection. However, what I have learned is that instincts can be supported by culture and law. The protocols we created do not give other species human instincts. But they do create a culture where all children are valued and protected. That might be even better. Professor Carter, who had been listening from the back of the classroom, spoke up. That is a wise answer, Kelrath. Instinct is powerful, but conscious choice to do good is powerful too. You chose to learn from your mistakes. You chose to help others avoid those mistakes. That choice has made the galaxy safer for children of all species. After the call ended, Kelrath sat in his quarters thinking about how much had changed. A year ago, he had arrested 3 human children and created an interstellar incident. Today, he was friends with those same children. He was working with humans to build a better galaxy, and he was respected as an expert on cross-species relations. The Vortan incident had been terrifying at the time, but it had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Humans were not just another species to trade with and make treaties with. They were partners who brought something unique and valuable, a fierce commitment to protecting the vulnerable, an instinct to defend all children regardless of species, and the galaxy was learning to appreciate that gift. You arrested human kids? Oh, sweet summer alien. Yes, Kelrath thought to himself with a gentle smile. I did. And I learned the most important lesson of my life because of it, that humans are not to be feared. They are to be understood, respected and valued. Because when you understand them, when you respect their instincts, and